Okay, I'm gonna have to cut that bit off because I forgot. Right, here we go.
It's a
So,
great start.
well, yeah, great start. I know, bad times. I really forgot what was the whole entire like episode format then. Right, I might cut that bit off. I might leave it in just for shits and giggles. I mean, just for fun. Right, welcome to Rad-Ventures. Matt King, thanks for being on the show. Just before you give it the old what's your name and where'd you come from? Of course, I've done the what's your name bit. But I just want to say that this is a huge honor for me. You coming on the show, and I really appreciate it because you are the reason that I am in the podcasting game now.
No,
Yeah, yeah,
seriously.
yeah.
Oh,
When I started
thank you
business,
very much.
when I started my business in 2020, February 2020, I was getting into the business world. I got into Instagram, and somehow, I think it was Dorset Biz News said about William St. James and Joe going into business together. And then somehow I found them. And then recently they'd been on your podcast, Sales Change podcast.
You
And
do.
then I started following you. I hadn't listened to a podcast before. And then I was like, I'm going to listen to this podcast. I listen to that podcast religiously, Matt, every week.
It was
Well,
and it's crazy because that was like 4, 5 years ago.
it was
It's a long time
four
ago.
years ago. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
madness. And there was 2 seasons of that podcast. So I did the first season was local business leaders, and then the second season I did international sales coaches, people that I respected. I reached out to using the following I built on Instagram and just said, "Listen, can you come on my podcast?" And like some of my favorite authors were on that podcast. I found some really interesting conversations, and it was a real, honestly, during COVID and recording that across the COVID period was so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah, because the second one there was quite a few Americans on there, wasn't there? But they were all like sales leaders and stuff like that.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
fairly fun fact for you is that it used to come out on a Monday, didn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Because I
You're
used to
sticking
have,
the bottom of the barrel of my knowledge now.
I used to, yes, like I know more about this. This is my mastermind subject, sales change podcast. Yeah, because Monday mornings I used to listen to it while shaving my head, ready, and I had Mondays off, so that was shave my head day back then. Of course, now it's Mondays and Thursdays because I have to do it twice now.
I'm glad to
There you
have been
go.
part of that routine.
Yeah, but I it literally used to start on my phone and I put it on the side and I'd get on with my daily ablutions, as it were. And yeah, because they were about 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah. 30, 40 minutes long. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, um, if I hadn't have discovered that, then I wouldn't probably be doing the podcast today. This podcast has been 4 years in the works. It was July 2020. We were all in lockdown when I had my iPad. I bought a little lavalier mic, and I was like, I downloaded what was it called before it's Audible?
Anchor,
No, not that's not it.
anchor.
No, it was the oh, it's just been rebranded to Spotify for podcasters. Oh, I can't remember. I'll have to look that up and add it to the show notes or something. But I had that on my Anchor. Yeah, Anchor.
That's what I just said. Anchor FM. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. um, yeah, so I had Anchor, but I just like I don't know what to do. I didn't know what it to be on. I didn't know whether to do it on my own and just spout a load of words for like half an hour. And then over the years I've been busy with my own business, etc. And then it came to me one day. I was like, actually, those little adventures of how people started, or when they just had to decide in school what you're going to do when you're grown up, and then what do you do now, and that little bit in between. I was like, oh my god, they are so interesting. I should talk to people about that. So that I think, and we'll come back to our past, but
Yeah.
that segues quite nicely into what did you want to do? Oh, sorry. Tell us what you do now, Matt. We'll do that
So,
bit first.
but so we do the intro first. So I'm Macking,
Yeah,
and I help at the moment. I help run a software development company in Bournemouth. So I work for a company called Yammy App. We're a team of developers, and we basically build business systems from the ground up. So if you've got weird, wonderful spreadsheets that Carol in accounts needs to access on a Monday, and then you can't get into the spreadsheet because Carol's in it, we'll come along and we'll build basically a piece of software which does exactly what your business needs it to do. It's not a piece of off-the-shelf software. It's literally built from the ground up. So that's what I do at the moment. I help run the software team in Bournemouth.
That sounds really awesome. That's a fairly recent thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I moved away from so my previous job was I was manager of a manufacturing company in Poole. We made plastic valves, and once you've sold one plastic valve, it's kind of a rinse and repeat, and it's not. You'd have to think outside the box, but at least now in the role that I'm in, it's a little bit more creative, which is where I wanted to head. Given all the things that I've done, the podcast, the videos, and the Instagram, and I'm sure we'll come onto all of that. But given all of that, I wanted to move into the creative industries, and this kind of, I mean, when I was at school, I would, just to lead on to your other question that I know that you're going to ask me, but when I was at school, I was big into, so I was the kid that the teachers would call on to sort the computers out. So when we're talking in the 80s, so we all had BBC Electrons, we all had BBC Micros, loading in the big floppy disks, the 3.5-inch floppy disks. I was the kid that the teachers would call to come and sort the computers out. So it's kind of come full circle. Now I'm working in software development, so I'm the bloke that you'd call to sort out your business problems.
Oh, nice. Um, Yeah, I mean those 3.5-inch floppy disks. When people think of floppy disks, they think of the other ones, don't they? The smaller ones. But
The
way back
micro
when,
ones, yeah.
they were bigger, weren't they?
Yeah,
I think I did experience some of those. I think we had a game on one once. The very first computer we had, and you had to push them in, and then you had to flick a latch down to make sure they stayed in. Yeah, good times.
very good times.
So you just talked when you mentioned school. Then, so tell us when you were at school. What did you envision that you would do when you were grown up?
So I had two dreams. The first, I remember. So I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. So that's when I was going to school. The first dream I had was I wanted to be in the army, and I fulfilled that dream. I joined the army when I was 16, and I went off to Iraq, the Falklands, and Canada, and all those weird and wonderful places. So my first dream was that. My second dream was to present radio. I wanted to be the face of radio. I wanted to be the next. Who were the big people? Mark and Lard, Chris Moyles, the old school Radio One days. I wanted to be on radio. I wanted to be the new Scott Mills, and I also did that. Thankfully, so I did present radio. I did maybe 3 or 4 shows. Do you remember Power FM
No,
in the
I don't
south?
think I
They
heard
then
Power
got bought
FM.
out. Yeah, they got bought out by Capital. So Power FM became Capital. But I did 3 or 4 shows for Power FM before they became Capital. And there's a separate story to that, but I got fired for being drunk on air. But anyway, let's not.
Oh dear. Yes, that sounds like
Yeah,
a story for a bit later on down in the podcast.
yeah, possibly.
Good. Yeah. So army wise, then, I kudos to you. I really, I've got a lot of respect for anyone who joins the armed forces. Um, so yeah, really, appreciate your service, as they say in America. But apply that to UK. You were engineers, weren't you, or something?
I was in the Royal Corps of Signals. Yeah. So I was
Ah,
based
cool
in
signals.
Bulford, not far from where we are. Bulford and Blandford. So Blandford is where they do the basic training, and then Bulford is where I was based, just outside of Salisbury.
There's something about signals in Open Blandford Way. My partner's family had one of the family members had something to do with that radar, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll have to ask her the story, and I'll get back to you. But
Do
yeah,
a
so
separate
after
podcast,
the
Rich.
army, then, huh?
We'll do a separate podcast on that.
Yes, yes, I will. I'll investigate. I'm sure stories driving across Tarrant Hinton. Sure, I remember her telling me a story about signals and Blandford and a family member, great grandfather, grandfather, one of the two.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we'll revisit in episode 2 of Matt King.
There's enough to go around, I'm telling you.
Oh, I tell you what, I don't know how we're going to get through today's list. We've got so much to talk about. Right, so we talked about the army, your radio days. I also wanted to try my hand at radio way back when. I was in my first job working in catering. Well, second job technically working in catering. We used to spend a lot of time ringing up the local radio station, which was Wessex FM at the time. They're now Greatest Hits Radio,
Nice.
or Greatest Hits Radio Dorset. But yeah, we used to ring up quite a lot, and we'd request songs all the time, and we'd enter their competition. They had a competition where you had to be caller number 7, and then you'd win free tickets to Peakorama or something. And we'd get out their mobile phones, we'd get the landline phone, we'd
What's
be pressing
Peakorama?
redial. Peakorama, it's like a little miniature railway thing down in Devon.
And you were ringing up to be caller number
We
7 to
wanted
win tickets to
yeah,
Peakorama.
to win free tickets to the Summer of 1,000 Tickets or whatever they used to call it. Yeah.
Wow.
So they'd always be like, "Oh, great, it's Richard." We're like, "Oh yeah." In fact, one time I got in a taxi and I saw he had it was a transit van, and I saw in the windows he had the Wessex FM stickers, and I said to him, I said, "Hang on a second, are you like Andy the cabbie or something?" He was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I'm Richard from the Marquis," and he's like, "No way!" That's how much I used to ring up on the radio.
So they'd recognise your number, surely. They'd
Yeah,
know it
yeah,
was
they
you.
did. Yeah, yeah.
See,
One of the guys did know the number.
In the days of TikTok now, you'd become a minor celebrity on probably their TikTok channels because you would be the guy that constantly rings up. Have you seen these guys in Australia where there's this one guy who just rings up to try and fool them? Have you seen this TikTok
I've
clip?
seen it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And his mission is if he can get on the radio. So he goes out and he borrows other people's phones and then puts on fake voices. And apparently, if he gets on the radio with this presenter, he gets like cash money or prizes or something like that. So there's this thing going now where this guy goes out onto the streets, he borrows other people's phones, just calls in the studio with a stupid voice, and then pretends it's somebody else. And then at the end of the call goes, "Got you, mate," and then hangs up the phone. It's
I wonder
hilarious.
how
Yeah,
much money does he make? I wonder. I reckon I could do that.
yeah, for sure. But
Yeah,
that's what you would have been if you were doing that now in the TikTok era. That's what you would
yeah.
be. You would be that guy.
Before my time. See, before my time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trendsetter.
So yeah. I mean, I did get the whole. One of the managing director of the station at the time. Give it the old. Send me your sample tape. And I was like, I don't know how to make a sample tape. And this was like 2007, 2008, 2009, maybe.
Yeah,
So the internet wasn't quite as handy back then as it is now. It was still handy for downloading multiple music tracks, etc. On
LimeWire.
LimeWire. Yeah,
Yes.
don't download that Linkin Park track though. Numb, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Not that I would have downloaded that track anyway. Not my favorite. The best album was the first album.
I'm not a big Linkin Park fan. I've got to be honest.
No. Ah, okay. Good times. Right. So radio stations. So you went. So okay. So you did the army.
Yes.
That was after school. And so, how did you end up from the army and then going into radio to being back into software developing?
So when I left the army after 2 tours of Iraq. So I did the whole going across the border. This was uh, 20. I can't remember. It was a while ago. 2000. It was in the 2000s. So that we went into Iraq. Basically, when Tony Blair said, "Yeah, we're crossing the border," I was in Iraq. I was in Kuwait at that time, and we crossed the border and went into Iraq. Then I came back for 6 months, and I did another 6 month tour. And I thought, right, this is going to be the kind of the pattern for the next 12 months, 24 months. And I'm not going to go to Iraq another 2 times. So I signed my papers. You have to give a year's notice to leave the army. So you have to work another year once you've signed off. So I did that. In that time, I sent out my demo tapes to Power FM, and I basically spent that year just. So I did a resettlement course, which was trained as an electrician. So I'm a trained electrician as well. I started presenting radio. You used to go out. So I was doing like the Saturday night to Sunday morning slot bit that nobody wants to do. So what I would do
Yeah, yeah.
is I would go out on the pit on Saturday night and then stumble into the studio. And I think I'd left tracks playing for about 45 minutes before someone came and found me. So yeah, I was slightly inebriated, didn't go back to the station. So I actually left the army and just went into manual labouring. So I was just doing like landscape gardening. I was doing pond lights, decking lights, that type of stuff. So I had a fantastic body then. I'm not going to lie. I was manual labouring all the time. I was just like 6-pack, moving patio stones. But I wasn't really fulfilling my potential, if I put it mildly. And then one of the family members at the time said, "You've got the gift of the gab. Do you want to come and work for me?" And at the time, uh, the person I was speaking to worked for a company called Rent-A-Kill, and they do pest control. But this was for something slightly different. It was water treatment. So I went into their specialist hygiene division, and I basically had to do like a like an aptitude test and a personality test, and I ticked all the boxes were ticked and all that type of stuff, and I did all of that, got the job, and I worked for the largest water treatment company at the time. It was a company called Clearwater. I worked for them for about 6 7 years. And no, I worked for Rentokil, then moved to Clearwater. Worked for Clearwater for about 6 7 years, and then thought, I'm a technically I'm a big fish in a big pond. I'm not going to get to the where I wanted to go. So I left and I went to another company called Goodwater. Clearwater, Goodwater. There's lots of waters in this world. And then did that. Worked my way up. I was working with the board there, and then thought, right, I want to run a company. So I started looking for jobs closer to where I'm at. Got the job at the valve company. Started running that. Was there for 5 years, and then, as I say, wanted to be a bit more creative. Over those 5 years, I started to find my feet in terms of podcasting, vlogs, Instagram, doing all of the creative stuff, the stuff that I really enjoy. The job just got too much. I couldn't do all the creative stuff, so I decided, right, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go and find something which fulfills me, which is why I now got the job at Yammy App. And as I say, it's good because I'm able to do the creative side of things. I'm wearing my branded t-shirts, so I'm able to scratch that itch whilst also having a bit of a creative side within the job as well. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that is like quite an adventure as how you've got there. You've worked your way, from serving your country, then doing what you wanted to do, then doing what you had to do, and then kind of working your way up. The reason it just struck me is why I thought you were in REME, is because I knew about the electrician thing, being a qualified electrician.
Yeah, yeah,
I've heard it before, or I think I checked a website for you once, and it mentioned it on there. When you relaunched a website, I had a quick proofread for you, I think. Um,
yes, yeah,
but let's talk about briefly the creative side, your brands. Originally, you were side hustling in inverted
yes,
commas for listeners rather than watchers as sales change, where you were doing sales coaching,
yeah,
and that involved the podcast too, didn't it? And you did have merch for that. I mean, I made this T-shirt myself. This is part of my merch for one of my brands. Um, so with regard to sales change, that's where you had the podcast. That's where you started with the Instagram, wasn't it?
yeah. So
And
Sales change came about. It literally was. So you talked about Will and Joe, but do you remember the guys at Podcast Labs? So Podcast Labs were a podcast agency in Bournemouth. They started in the same building as Will and Joe, so where St James
oh yeah,
Studio
yeah,
were based. And they ran a competition, which was they were going to record and produce a series of podcasts for the winner of this competition. Now, I entered that competition and I didn't win, but I kept in contact with Andy and Kelly, and then we came to some sort of arrangement. I had some sort of discount, and they produced the first, I think, 5 or 6 episodes of the Sales Change podcast. So that's where the podcast started, and we needed a name for the podcast. And I remember distinctly sitting in my lounge, typing away, just putting names into Company's House to see if it was available. And Sales Change was the first thing, because in my mind, I wanted to become what I do with businesses and how I sit within them is that I go in and I change the sales process so that it's a bit more collaborative. It's a bit more, it's in my style. So arm around the shoulder, it's a bit more consultative and all that type of stuff. So in my mind, Sales Change kind of worked. So that's where I started the Instagram page. So the Instagram page wasn't specifically for my design work initially. It was for the podcast. So the podcast was like the vehicle. And then I discovered Carousels.
yeah. I'd say early 2021 there was this all of a sudden, there's this kind of boom of carousels where everyone went from doing individual pictures on Instagram to to doing these carousels, these 10 slides for those that don't know. Or
Yeah,
less nowadays, but the aim was 10 back then because that's what you're allowed. You had to get as much information into that carousel as you could, wasn't it? And I remember it launching. It was a fantastic time on Instagram. I remember it being really exciting, but then it kind of lulled towards the end, and you just got all these creative people just selling to creative people in like a
yeah.
weird kind of creative circle.
Echo chamber. It was like in an
And
echo
it
chamber.
was,
All these creative
yeah,
people were doing the same things as well.
yeah, and luckily, what dragged us out was Instagram Lives. And that's where I think I'd obviously followed you beforehand when we had the individual posts, and then I followed you in your carousel. Yours were amazing. They were out there. I loved your posts, every single one of them.
Yeah.
And then when you started Instagram Lives, that was even better. And I used to, this is when I was employed in my previous role, I used to have my phone on the desk and I'd watch Instagram Lives all day, while doing my job. And the boss would be like, "Oh, what you? Oh, just watching a YouTube on video, YouTube video just on how to do something or something." And actually, I was like, sat there, but it's from those YouTube lives. That's where I met. That's where I was introduced via you to Alan and Emily at Yellow Tuxedo, who I have been on their podcast. I speak to Alan quite nearly daily, I think. Listen to all
Alan's a
44, well,
beautiful man.
43 and a half episodes of their podcast I've listened to. And
Yeah.
it all goes back to you, Matt. And if I hadn't have just stumbled across you, I wouldn't know Alan and Emily. I wouldn't have listened to podcasts. I probably wouldn't be making my own podcast. So thanks
Listen,
for
the
that.
Instagram. I appreciate those really kind words, and that's really. I'm really privileged to think that all of that has come from me just putting a bit of effort out there. But listen, the Instagram lives. When I remember my first Instagram live, and I think this comes from a different kind of mindset, but just trying stuff all the time. That's what I was doing at that time. Like the carousels, if you look back, and I did this for a business session probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, where somebody was saying, "Well, how did you get a social presence and all this type of stuff?" And I went back and I started looking at the very early carousels that I was producing, and they were awful. I mean, the text wasn't aligned, the graphics weren't that good, but like you say, you love them, and it is. I mean, my carousels towards the end, I absolutely love them because I'd learned how to design things, I'd learned how to put graphics, I'd learned how to write copy. But it was that learning process and putting myself out there and just doing it. And the same happened with the Instagram lives. My first Instagram live was awful, and I remember distinctly sat in my conservatory at the time. I had a clothes horse with notes behind the phone. The phone was on a tripod. I put on like a suit jacket and a tie, and I was trying to make myself look all business and professional. And I can remember not even looking at the camera. I was just doing this and reading off from my notes. But that first Instagram live, I think, was probably watched by 30, 40 people. It wasn't like a big event. But then I got way, way more comfortable, and I realized that you don't have to turn up in a shirt and tie. You don't have to have notes. You just wing it. And like when you prepared this podcast, kindly send the offer of, would you like to know what the questions are, or would you like to? I can't remember the phrase you used. Raw dog it. Would you like to just not know? And I never like to know because I like
Mm.
conversations to flow. And that's where I found not confidence, but this ability to just have a conversation from. It does help you
Yeah, I mean,
learn.
for sure, it does. And with this podcast, this is my third recording with you. No, sorry, third recording. You are the third recording, not our third recording of this episode. It's our first
Yeah.
recording. But even I think back now to my first recording last week, and I seen things differently. I'm trying to mind my ers and my r's. There he goes again,
Um,
and right on cue. But and you feel more relaxed into it the more you do it. So those the other thing I was thinking of with regard to carousels, etc., and design is that when you do these things and you look at them all day, every day, and it's your style. You are the biggest critique of those. You look at
yeah.
it and you're like, oh, that's it's not quite central. That's rubbish. That's I need to move that. That font's not quite right. But it's because you've looked at it for so long, because you've made it. You've had the idea in your head for so long of it.
Yeah.
But when other people look at it, they just think, it's amazing, oh, brilliant, so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean,
a lot of it is
I was,
it's ourselves being self-critical.
it's 100% that because I was having this conversation. So, um, one of my friends has just joined another company and is creating their social graphics. And quite often he'll send me, Julio from the vlogs. So
Oh yes,
Julio from the vlogs, that's how I'm going to refer to him from now on. So Julio from the vlogs started working in a different company, and he sends me the social graphics to say, what do you think of this, or what do you think of this? And because I've got that design eye now, I can see where he's left a space at the end of text so it's not center aligned. I can see where certain text has to be larger or smaller, and just so that it aligns and it flows better. So because I've got that critical eye, but when I say it to him, he's like, "Oh yeah, why didn't I notice that there was a space at the end of that paragraph? Or why didn't I?" It's all these things that you can see now, and I can see, and I'm sure designers and graphic designers and people who've gone to college and have done like professional graphic design courses, they see all of this stuff, and but they see it because they're well versed and they're practiced in it. When I first started, I wasn't, and you have to pick it up. You have to make mistakes, and this is a lesson for everything in life. You have to just do it. You have to make the mistakes because you will get better. Like if I tried to pick up my guitar, which is hung in my kitchen now, I haven't played it for 4 or 5 years. I didn't really play it at the start, but I wouldn't be very good at the start. But if I played it every day for a year, I'm sure I'd be able to play a tune. You just have to
Yeah,
take
yeah.
the hits.
Kindred spirits there, Matt. I've got two guitars hanging up in the corner of the living room.
But we never play them. I just like the way
I
it
never
looks.
play them. Yeah, I like the way it looks. I did start to try and learn, and I could play a couple of bits, tunes and stuff, but I was never like, into it. My brother, he is like into it. You pass him a guitar, he'll improv something, he'll be like, play me something heavy. He'll play something heavy, play me something nice and acousticy, and he'll play something
Yeah.
acousticy. Me, I was like, well, I can do Freebird, or I can do Stairway to Heaven, or I can do Boston's More Than a Feeling. Which do you want? Or what's the other one? Sweet Child of Mine by uh, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I can do the intro to that, or so you've got the pick of four. One time I said to my brother, let's jam, give it a bash, and he's like, yeah, let's do Guns N' Roses then, if you know that. I was like, cool. He's like, you do the rhythm. So I can't play the rhythm, and
So
he
it's
was
not
like,
really jamming.
so yeah, so he's like, okay, so you're gonna do the solo there, the lead. I was like, well, I'll try the lead, yeah. And I just couldn't play well enough it kind of came together ultimately, and we had like 3 seconds, let's say, of bit where we're like, yeah, we're doing it, and it's amazing. But
We're
that was
making
it.
music.
Yeah, that was it. 3 seconds of pure bliss.
Well, I'll tell you, I only know one song, or I knew one song, and it was the James Arthur, the dun 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 dun, and it was literally a looping 3 note melody, and that's all I could play,
Uh,
which sounded beautiful because I used to put my son to sleep to that song, so that's why I was learning it. But now I couldn't. If you asked me to play it now, I wouldn't be able to tell you. No, one
well,
song.
that could be your mission in between Matt King episode 1 and episode Matt King episode 2. We want you to learn Wonderwall lyrics and
Okay,
singing as well.
like a challenge.
Yeah. All right. Let's do some. So we talked about the carousel years. Instagram lives, we talked about those and how amazing they were, and we've talked about Yellow Tuxedo and Joe at Kindful Creative. Cool. He also has an interest in. I think he's had a bit of a rad venture through his time, and because he was an accountant, and obviously now he's a videographer.
He is, yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm going to see if I can speak to him, because that is going to be an interesting story. And he's just actually a couple of days ago, him and his partner just had a little boy, Ronnie.
yeah,
So
yeah,
welcome to the
yeah.
world, Ronnie.
Yes.
Cool. So let's have a look at some quick fire questions now. I'll tell you about these quick fire questions. You opted for not having the questions first, Matt. So these are a surprise for you. So I look forward to your
Oh.
answers. And also, they are not very quick, but we'll see how we go.
Can I just clarify? Do I have to answer them quick, or do you have to ask them quick?
So the original idea was, we'll have like a little break. So it'd be like, just a quick few questions, just to like break it up a little bit. And it was supposed to be short answers. But having done this now a few times, I found that we can like deep dive into the answers. And so they're just they're not
They're
quick.
not quick fire anymore. Okay,
No.
let's do it.
All right, let's give it a bash. So Matt, I know that you are 21 in age. What's been your favorite age so far?
My favorite age was probably 32. Do you want to know why?
Should we deep dive that, or should we just leave it at 32?
No, 32 was the year that kind of my mind awoke from being in the army. I was like, I grew up in foster care and children's homes and stuff like that, and it was the first 32 was the first year that I actually started making decisions for myself. So I wasn't like being told to do this. And you look at me now and you think, oh well, you've done really well in your career and you've done all this type of stuff. But I used to take advice all the time, and I'd follow what people wanted me to do up until the point I was 32, and that's when I kind of suddenly had this awakening that I needed to take control of my life. Otherwise, I'd just be living somebody else's dream, and that's not the way it should live. So 32, and that's
Yeah, of course.
that. Coincidentally, Rich, that's the year I got divorced from my
Oh,
first
I
wife.
see. Read into that what you will.
Correct.
Um, no, 32 is 32. Is that the rock star age as well for Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, etc.? Was Jesus 32 as well?
Possibly.
Is there
I'll
something
tell
about
you.
32?
Yes.
I'll have a look
How
into
old was Amy
32.
Winehouse?
Oh, was that 31? I think
Oh, maybe. Yeah,
maybe.
one of those
We'll
ages.
revisit in episode 2.
Yeah,
Um, I keep talking about episode 2. We haven't got an episode 2 planned, just for clarification.
we're going
Um,
to be the
though
season
you never
finale
know.
though.
Yeah, season finale, episode 2, Matt King and Radmin. Okay, so I am a big fan of quotes. I use them all day, every day. In fact, sometimes famously on LinkedIn, people say, yes, Richard, that is a quote from such and such film. So, what is your favorite quote? You can have movie, meme, or another quote.
I really like the quote, and I was looking at it this morning because uh, it really resonated with me. But I really like the quote. What's the name of the guy? Um, I really like it that much that I can remember the quote. But I heard it this morning. We cannot become what we want by remaining what we are. There you go.
I
So we
love it.
yeah, we cannot become what we want by remaining what we are. So change is a constant thing in my life, and it goes back to probably my favorite age of being 32. But you just can't be the same person all the time.
Yeah, you've just reminded me actually of that of something I was going to say about your favorite age of 32, and it was a quote actually. I think it's by Jim Rohn, and it's essentially it says, you know, follow your own life plan because if you follow someone else's life plan, guess what they have planned for you? Not much.
Yeah,
Words to that effect, and that when you said about 32 and that's the way it had gone, that's what it made me think of. And famously in my previous job, I used to write a quote of the day on the board for a time, until I wrote that quote on the board. And that's when the managing director slash owner of the company took umbrage to my quote of the day, asking me what exactly I meant by that. Um, that was a tough day at the office.
was that the start of the end?
Well, actually, no. I mean, this is Matt King's podcast, not Richard Langdon slash Radmin's podcast. But I'll briefly mention that we got on me and the boss so well that I was kind of his confidant, his right hand man in the end. And I at the time I needed to have an operation, and he said he was waiting for this because I was limping around and stuff, and he said. I said I went and rang him when I got the phone call. I was like, boss, I got the phone call. He's like, brilliant news, Richard. Congratulations, well done. Don't worry, we'll sort you out when it comes to having the time off. And then 2.5 weeks later, he made us all redundant and closed the doors.
Oh,
So I don't think that was just before Christmas, by the way, just for get my little
wow.
violin out.
Well, that's a huge thing. Was there
It
no
was quite a
communication
big thing.
beforehand?
It was all a bit of a surprise. Two weeks kind of wrapped everything up. Um, yeah, it's a long story. I won't go into it too much. We can have that
But on the flip
conversation
side,
after the show.
I know you probably don't want to go into it too much, and I'm going into it too much. But on the flip side, you have to feel for him as well. I think
Oh yeah, of
uh,
course. I
you have to think
understand.
about his position.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I understand his all of his reasons, and I was never like some of the other staff there were they didn't appreciate that to have the lights on every day costs £100 a day, and to have 15 members of staff there. they all needed paying, and the coffee machine for the customers needed topping up and
Yeah.
paying for, and the electric, the gas, the everything.
Yeah.
And all some of the staff, all they saw was, you're doing that job. They saw a manufacturing line. It comes in, they do the job, the money gets handed over, ka-ching. Look at how much money's
Yeah.
going in his pocket. I knew that that wasn't the case, um, but they were all a bit naive. I did feel for him. But at the same time, there were measures in place to stop businesses from closing because it was that time a few years ago. Um,
Yeah.
but had he not closed, I wouldn't have gone full time self employed, and here we are. Was it nearly 4 years later?
Every cloud.
That is it. That is it.
That's
So
another quote I like.
good. Yes, every cloud has a silver lining. Good quotes there. Quotes plural. Matt, well done.
Thank
So
you.
this is more business related. What with me being a freelance administrator and overall business support guy, do you use Google Suite or Microsoft 365?
Uh, Personally, no, I use Google Suite. Google Suite.
You do.
Um,
I
in
mean,
my
you can say
last
both.
job, no, in my last job, it was Office 365, but at Yami App, we use Google Suite. Uh, for all of my side hustles, I use Google Suite. I just think it's much easier to manage, and uh, I'm on a Mac. I don't really like Office. I don't really like Windows. So uh, I'm a, I'm a Mac Apple fanboy, and
Hmm.
Google Suite is fine. Yeah, Google Suite.
Yeah. Good. I like both. My kind of time was that the mid 90s, and Microsoft was the thing back then. That's all we really
Yeah.
had. So I tend to lean more towards that. I find Google a little bit not slapdash. Would be an overzealous and over exaggeration. Yeah, it seems slightly lacking. I feel, but I like I say use both in everyday life. So you said you're a Mac boy. If you were stranded on a desert island, obviously this is hypothetical because you'd need a charged battery or anything like that. But if you had a device with you, what app could you not live without?
Ooh, what app? I'd have to say YouTube.
Yeah,
YouTube would be the app that I would want. I wouldn't care about if I'm stranded. WhatsApp and messages, I'm guessing, are not an option because then I will be stranded. I'm probably getting into the question too much, but if I had to pick an app in a theoretical situation where there was no communication allowed, but I could get Wi-Fi signal to watch videos, then I'd watch YouTube.
it's interesting that you say that. And YouTube is a fantastic platform. Because obviously you can learn so much on there, you can watch so much
Yes.
on there. There's entertainment, there's all sorts of value. You can even put out your own entertainment and value on there. The last person I spoke to talked about streaming service as well. Things to watch, kind of, in your downtime. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, when the question was originally, when I thought of the question originally, it was kind of like a, productivity kind of work thing. But the people I've spoken to, it's more of a kind of, oh, I'm on a desert island. Oh, no communication. Well, guess I better make the most of it. I'll watch a little bit of YouTube, which
But
we
honestly,
all need that,
if you
don't
went
we?
onto
Downtime.
if you
Sorry,
went on my
carry on.
screen time now, Rich, no, it's all right. If you went on my screen time now, YouTube is the number one app on my phone. I love YouTube. So, for example, I've just bought a new camera. I've bought a Sony A7S III. For the last 2 or 3 weeks, most of the algorithm has pushed me to A7S III reviews, camera setup videos. I find it just incredibly helpful to learn stuff, learn how to do things. Obviously, I've put out a ton of content on YouTube as well. I've done vlogs. Um, in my downtime, so for example, we watched a TV program last night. My wife fell asleep on the sofa. My go-to is not Netflix or Amazon Prime or Apple TV. I go to YouTube because I've got such a large list of stuff in my save to watch later.
Yeah.
List that I just trawl through that, and they're 10, 15 minute
Yeah.
bite-sized bits. I just love YouTube.
Yeah, I must admit, I have a Insta 360 One RS, and I have spent quite a bit of time recently on YouTube, you learning how to do the 360 footage and things like that. It's that 15 minutes that you can just watch a video. It's not too long, it's not too short. It's got enough information in there, and then obviously you're picking up new skills. So you
Yeah.
can appreciate the YouTube love. And
Yes.
of course, downtime with us being, small business owners, entrepreneurs, etc. Downtime is as important as work time, which a lot of us do forget. You can't. So I think someone said last time, you can't pour from an empty jug.
Cup. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You can't serve from an empty jug. That's that type of thing. All right,
Yeah. I agree.
name and shame time
Uh-oh.
on your phone right now. How many unread emails do you have?
11.
11.
11.
No way.
I'm a
It's
very,
Apple Mail as well.
very, yeah, I'm a very, very uh, professional email reader and sender, and like my wife's email inbox, I think it's about something like 3,000 or something like that. But I'm a firm believer in inbox zero. So if I've read it
Yeah.
and it's I manage my inboxes. If you were to ask me how many inboxes I've got, one, two, three, four, five, six. I've got 7 email accounts on my phone, and so across 7 email accounts, I have 11 emails.
That is pretty good going.
Have I?
So
Am I the
we
champion?
give we give Matt the pro email badge.
That's
Yeah,
honestly, I'm religious with my emails. Same as my text messages. I also don't. I'm a firm believer in. I don't like the little red dots.
yeah.
I like clearing them
I
off.
don't like the red dots. It's like I was telling someone the other day. I went for like a breakfast meeting, and I looked over at someone's. I looked over to someone to talk to, and they were looking at their phone, and they had like lots and lots of unread text messages,
Yeah,
and I was like, is that like a are you doing that because that's your to-do list? You work through text messages and they're all unread, or I was like, oh no, I can't have that. It's like read it and like get rid of that little notification, and then think
yeah.
about it later if I have to, or get back straight back to it. But no, I couldn't have like 45 messages waiting for me, text messages and all as well. No, I don't like those
No,
little red dots. I'm with you.
I'm also so both of my. So I've got my Yammy app and another business account which I do the work on. Uh, I'm a firm believer in either delegation or dealing with it as I need to, and if not, then it's put in straight into a list of I need to deal with that. That's my next job. So yeah, I'm a very professional email man.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've read before. You also like to use productivity tools. You do use Notion, is it, or is it?
I do use Notion quite a lot. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So Notion is like my. I use Notion as a brain library, if that makes sense. So I
yeah, yeah.
have all my passports, all of my birth certificate, everything is in Notion. I use it as a secondary database for my brain. Yeah, Notion's a
Yeah,
big app.
handy those not apps. Well, yeah, apps. They are is an app. Sometimes desktop app. Sometimes it's just a internet based one, cloud based kind of thing.
Yeah. So when you
Um,
asked me which app would I have on a desert island, Notion did come into my brain, but I thought Notion's not going to be any use to me on a desert island. So
Not if you've not got any signal or anything, is it? I mean, you could
no.
plan your survival on Notion, couldn't you?
Yeah,
Maybe that'll give you a little bit of a respite in between fishing or something.
exactly.
Cool. All right, last quick fire question in inverted commas. This is one we're working on this one because it doesn't apply to lots of people, but we're going to go with it for you. We're going to go with it. So, if you could afford any car, you didn't worry about the insurance, you didn't worry about how much it costs, you didn't have to worry about tires, maintenance, anything like that. What car would you have in the driveway?
Classic Land Rover.
Yeah.
Yeah, without question, it's my dream car.
Well,
I wouldn't.
Series One, Series Two.
Series One, yeah, classic Land Rover Defender, 90. It would be yeah, beautiful, and
Nice,
with no bells or whistles. Just I want the
as it
seat
is.
ripped. I want yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's exactly what I want.
that's pretty cool. I like it when you go to like the country shows and you see them all there.
Yeah, yeah. No, if I'm sure my wife would say no, we want a Range Rover Sport or a Bugatti Veyron if my kids were asking, Ferrari or something like that. But it's not practical. I just want a Land Rover Discovery or Land Rover Defender 90 from the 80s or 90s that is falling apart. I'd love that.
Yeah,
That's what I want.
I like it. They're handy. You can do a multitude of stuff with it. Drive around town. Drive
Do a tip
through a
run,
ford if you wanted to. A little bit of off-roading, or you could just, use it as a
go
daily
do your
commuter.
shopping. Yeah, kids,
Yeah,
throw the kids in the back, throw the dogs in the back, put a kayak on the roof.
yeah,
Do whatever you want. Practical.
I like it. I like it. Right, let's have a quick look at these. I was going to say the bit I was talking to you about before, but we weren't recording at that point, so nobody would know what I was talking about. Okay, let me redo that. So I was looking at the newspaper last week, and CV Library, the recruitment agent, has have provided a list of their most popular jobs of 2024. Let's see if Matt would apply for any of these. All right,
Go
so
for
number
it.
10, we've got inventory operator. Do you fancy that?
No.
Manual line operator at number 9.
Nope.
Food and beverage team member at number 8.
Nope.
Packing operator at number 7.
A what operator?
Packing operator.
Nope.
Number 6, head of social sustainability.
Nope.
Number 5, customer contact advisor.
Nope.
Number 4, CCTV controller.
Definitely not. No.
We're getting into the good ones now. Number
Okay.
3, TikTok presenter.
No. Definitely not.
Uh, okay, this one is my favorite. Number 2, theme park historic character.
No.
Nah,
No.
don't fancy dressing up and running around a theme park.
No. No. Come on, I want to know what number one
All
is.
right, number 1,
Is
you're
it
going
the,
to love this.
is it the England Football Manager job?
No, um, though maybe we'll write to CV Library and see if they could put that on the next list. Number 1 is data management officer.
No. I wouldn't apply for any of those jobs.
I love your
This
face
is
then. It was
probably
like,
not
what?
that's number
Apparently,
one.
apparently this is the jobs that people are applying for. They don't want the finance man, 6 foot four, blue eyes, whatever it is. They want
Yeah.
data management officer.
That's weird. Like,
Yeah.
if you were to say to me, out of those top 10, if you had to pick one job out of those top 10, it would have to be the TikTok presenter. That would be the only, and that you'd have to force me. You'd have to put my arm behind my back and say, go on, go and do it. None of
Yeah.
those inspire me.
I suppose customer contact advisor wouldn't be too bad for me. I've done that,
What does that
and
even
I
mean?
enjoyed it. That's inbound sales.
Oh, no.
Customer services.
Yeah, I
Hello.
don't
Oh,
like
you've
that.
got a problem. Yes, allow me to fix that for you. Yes, new one in the post. I'm sorry it's delayed. But yeah, data management officer. Isn't that what Chandler Bing did on Friends?
I don't know. I've never watched an episode of Friends.
Oh, haven't you? Oh, okay. I thought you might be
I'm
that
one of
age.
the Yeah, no, I'm one of those three people that have never seen an episode of Friends, and I'm proud of the fact
Ah,
that I've never seen an episode of Friends.
yeah. What about the other show that people don't watch? Game of Thrones. You seen that?
I've seen all of that and House of Dragon.
Yeah.
House of the
What do you
Dragon,
think
yeah.
of the What do you think of House of Dragon final series 2 finale? Have you watched it yet?
Yes and no, I didn't really.
Disappointed?
I like the fact that they've set it up for season three.
Me
But
too.
they should have had more.
I
They
got
should have
to. I
either
was
had a
like,
massive death, like
yeah.
a main character die, or something big happening. Yeah.
I was like, looking. I kept pausing it, and I was like, hang on a sec. 47 minutes. We've got what is it? 19 minutes left. There's no way they're going to have a massive dragon battle in this time. There's no
No.
chance of us having like a sword battle, a sea battle, nothing. And then all of a sudden, they just started showing all the characters and kind of working on the outro. I was like, what? It's like, no,
Yeah.
we've now got to wait for
Yeah.
series 3. They were even jumping on their dragons. They were launching ships. They were
Yeah.
heading out on their horses.
and yeah, nothing really happened. It's a bit
Yeah, not
poor.
cool, man. HBO, work on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right. So we've done the quickfire questions and a little bit more. Um, so now, I suppose we've got what do you want to be when slash if you grow up, bearing in mind that we're all Peter Pan and we don't really want to grow up. So I suppose this might be a good time for you to tell us about Let Them Create.
Yeah, so Let Them Create is another side hustle of mine. My wife said to me today, because she said, because I put this T-shirt on, because I said I've got to be on brand if I'm on the podcast. And she said, which of the Let Them brands is that? I said, it's Let Them Hate, which is the other clothing brand. But Let Them Create is a side hustle. So I'm, I love creating things. I love creating videos. I love creating content. I love creating carousels. I love creating. And so many people ask me, I mean, let me take it a step back, Rich, because when sales change was a thing, um, one of the reasons I stopped posting on Instagram was that I completely burnt out. Without meaning to, I picked up two or three clients, like on a graphic design level, and I was creating their content for them, creating their carousels, creating their single post images. And I had two or three clients at a time that were paying me like £1,000 a month to create these, but that was alongside a full-time job. So I was spending all my evenings creating my own content, creating their content, going to work, doing a full day's work, coming home, creating my content, and it got to the stage where I just said, look, I can't, as much as the money is nice, I can't keep doing it because I was just burning out. So that period of burnout has probably lasted for, and that's why I shifted to YouTube. That period of burnout on Instagram has lasted probably 2 or 3 years. I'm finally happy to start posting again, and I want to pick up some
Mm,
clients. Like I have some free time. I want to pick up some clients where I can create content again. And I don't mean content in carousels and graphic design. I also mean video content, which is why I've just bought this very swish, very nice camera system. And Let Them Create is a part of that. So not only am I the manager of Yummy App and I'm the face of Yummy App and doing all of that type of stuff, I'm also going to start building this profile of Let Them Create. And it's to help boring, non-rad business leaders or businesses create some really funky content. So just being themselves and owning their own space, because that really helped me in growing my profile, growing my businesses in plural. And I just want to do that for other people. So yeah, Let Them Create is my new, and it's on
nice.
Instagram, it's Let Them Create Stuff.
Let them create stuff. I like it. And so you're running that alongside Let Them Hate, which is your clothing brand as well.
Yeah. I, Clothing brand is a very loose term because I've not sold that
Well,
many clothing items. But yeah, listen, I'm just a perennial creator. I like creating stuff, and when I have an idea, I just try and follow it through, just to learn all the things that I need to do to create that certain thing. And Let Them Hate was is part of my clothing brand, which you can find at imatking.com or letthemhate.co.uk. They both go to the
nice.
same
I like
place.
it. And so one of your creative outlets is the Clique. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the Clique is my weekly newsletter, and I am astounded that I've managed to remain consistent with the Clique. The Clique is a weekly newsletter based around my life, what I enjoy, what I like doing, what I'm learning, how I'm learning it. So there's a weekly blog article which I write every single week. There's three things I think you'll love. So three, whether it's YouTube videos, music, there's lots of stuff in there. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, I celebrated a year of consistency, and I put out a Notion document which had over 150 things I love because I collated the three things I love from the last 52 weeks. So that, uh, so three things I think you'll love, and plus there's a photo from my camera roll every week, which I think is a nice personal touch. You get to see what's in my camera roll. So one photo that I think really resonates with me. So yeah, but it's been going for just over a year now, and I'm really enjoying. So when I first started this newsletter, my writing style was completely honed for Instagram. It was all short form, all short, snappy, sort of five things to make you do this or three things to do, which doesn't really work in a newsletter or a blog setting. and my writing has evolved and has become way more improved, that I'm able to now tell stories every single week, which is I like telling stories, as you could probably tell on the podcast. I like relating things back to certain things. So my writing style has evolved, and I like telling stories, which is what the Clique is. It's weekly stories about my life and things I think you'll love.
Yeah, I mean, I love reading your blog posts, and I love the way you write them. The way it reads, it is definitely telling a story,
Yeah,
and it's like you say, it's certainly different from you know five things to get you the next three sales. It's different,
yeah,
definitely different to that, and it's definitely improved as you've gone along. With regard to your YouTube, then I love your blogs. Um, I've seen a few of them from when you were doing them. I think little while ago you were doing, systematically, kind of quite fairly regularly.
yeah.
So I think that was I don't know, can't remember what day they were launched now. I failed that mastermind question.
Every day for I did a vlog every day for I aimed for a month, but I managed just over 2 weeks. So I did 14 or 15 in a row, and they would come out sort of periodically. I'd say every month or every 2 weeks, something like that. They were mainly travel vlogs because I travelled quite a lot for my last job. So we'd go on adventures and go, I don't know, go down to the beach or do lots of different stuff when I was travelling. So go to Canada, flying a drone, crashing the drone again, that type of stuff. But they would listen. I'm under no illusions. They were completely inspired by Casey Neistat and how he creates his vlogs and all this type of stuff. And uh, I love the creative process behind a vlog. I love the how to create a story element, and I really want to get back to doing it. And that's what is in the pipeline. It's in the works. With Yamiak, we're just about to move offices, so we're going to create some vlogs around that. We've got some exciting software products coming out, so we're going to create some vlogs around how we build those. So there's lots of stuff in the pipeline, and I have so many ideas. I have so many ideas that I can't keep track of them.
Yeah, I mean, vlogging. I love vlogs, and it's something I aspire to do myself. But it's not hard work. That's the wrong word. It's intensive, isn't it? Like for me,
Yes.
to carry around the camera all day, every day, to put it on at certain points. I mean, here's a fine example for you. As I was getting set up to do this podcast today, I set my Insta360 camera up. I've put it in film mode. I was going to record me doing the podcast from over there, over
Yeah.
with the ring light, and then I was going to remove the sound, and then you'd have like a nice video of me basically going like this and chatting away
Yeah.
into the microphone. Uh, I've forgotten to press record, haven't I? So it's also off now. It's look. I'm staring at it like, yeah, I see you. I see you over there. You're off. And that's why I can't get into vlogging. And then even with your phone, my phone is I've got an iPhone 11, which you turn the camera on to 4K and 60 frames per second. It's perfectly adequate,
Yeah.
but my memory's just too full of photos that I've taken. So what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perhaps next year's resolution. This year's was obviously start a podcast. Next year's maybe it's do a vlog.
Honestly, the vlogging process is intensive. What I found was that to edit just 1 minute of footage within a vlog for me would take me around an hour. So if I'm putting out a 6 minute vlog, for example,
Mm.
it would typically no about an hour is probably a stretch. An hour at the start of when I first started to edit, it would be, but now it's probably half an hour for every minute. So you're talking 2 or 3 hours worth of editing just to get a 5 or 6 minute vlog out. And then you've got to make it interesting because nobody wants to watch me put my shoes on for the 11th time. So you can
Yeah,
film yourself putting your shoes on one day, but then the next day you've got to try and find another way to open the vlog. And it's just
yeah, yeah,
that it's problem solving in your brain. It's a constant creative process, but it is also incredibly time consuming. And that's probably the bit that you don't see. You see, like, it's fun carrying a camera around and just filming yourself and filming people around you and getting people to interact. That's the easy part. The hard part is the editing, and that's where the work is put in.
yeah. I mean, nowadays you get AI tools to help with that, but sometimes they're just not the best, are they?
Well, how
Um,
Casey Neistat? did a daily vlog for 800 days in a row, and
Yeah.
he would put out what were essentially mini movies, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes long every single day, and he'd wake up and do the same thing every single day for over 2 years. It's just incredible. It is
Mm.
incredible, and the dedication to his craft, the dedication to his work was just insane. And like I said, I tried it for a month, and by day 14, 15, I was burnt out, completely lost. It's just
Yeah.
too much.
At the beginning of the year, I was doing a daily photo. So
Yeah.
like a photo like here, and I did the whole of January, and I did about halfway through. I did February, and I started in March. I was like, you know, it's just a picture of my face every day, and I was like, so I was like, I could be making vlogs, I could be making a podcast, I could be doing something else, but instead I'm taking a picture of my face every day. And then I thought, so I knocked it on the head. I was like, no, maybe next year.
I
Yeah,
know Emily does a
maybe.
1 second every day. She's got an app called, I think it's called a second every day. And I did that for a year. But I think Emily does it every single year. She does 1 second every day. And it's
Oh
quite simple
right.
to do because you just record a small clip, or it takes it from your camera roll and it converts live photos into a clip. But even that, and I'm impressed with Emily's consistency on that, but even that is a task. And you think just 1 second every day is something simple to do.
Yeah,
But there's so
I
so
suppose
many
with
times you can film your dog, or something like that. So I'm impressed with Emily's consistency on that, because those are always nice things to look back on. I mean, when I did the 1 second every day, it's probably 4 or 5 years ago now. It's nice because you can see the one. It's 1 second. It's 365 seconds, and it's just a nice clip. It's nice to have, and I wish I did. I wish I kept up with that.
yeah, I suppose it's if it's in an app, it might be slightly
Yeah,
easier if you're just doing it, for yourself, and then you got to, either move the photo somewhere or put it in a folder, and then, if you want to make a video from that, you're gonna have to upload them all or re-download them all, even worse, and then upload them all. That's if it was in an app and it did it all for you, then perhaps it might not be such a chore. I think is what we're trying to say. Those may be.
yeah,
Um, cool. So I think we kind of got a little bit sidetracked on what it is exactly you would do if you were to grow up. But I think it's ultimately, from my understanding, is that basically you want to create, and you're basically in that space now. So
yeah.
kudos
I'm
to you
trying to
there.
move. I'm trying to move into doing things that I want to do rather than working for somebody else. Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
I envy
So
you, Rich, I envy you because you're self-employed, and
you do.
I've always wanted to be self-employed. I've always wanted to run my own business. Uh, I'm just in a position. Life has put me in a position now where I have children and a family to support, and I'm in a very privileged position in terms of the role I've got, and it's incredibly difficult to match the salary and match what I have in a self-employed role. So it's going to take a lot of work. So I do envy you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And sometimes I envy employed people,
Yeah,
because they both come with their challenges. Being
yeah,
self-employed for me, it does give me the freedom. But I for my role, and the things I do, in admin and freelance admin for people, I constantly clock in time all the time.
yeah,
Invoices, piling up, and I use technology. I actually use a CRM software called with Moxie. Timesheets are in there. My accountants and your accounting can be in there. Not that I use it for that. I use a different accounting software. Project management every day, different projects. I can even have client portals in there so they can see what I'm up to. They can put in support tickets, etc. So as we've gone on, I've streamlined, but it's been a learning curve. But I don't think I would go back to being an employee at this time. I'm
yeah,
enjoying the freedom I get from my work. I'm enjoying helping those people that I do help, my 8 clients or however many it is now. Um, But sometimes it would be nice just to go to work, do a day, come home, and just be like, I've done my work for the day. Otherwise,
yeah,
you sat there, lying in bed thinking, oh, did I do that? Did I do that one? Or oh, here's what I've got to do tomorrow, or all that type of stuff. So swings and roundabouts for both.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I'm sure I had another point on that, but I've forgotten it. All right, let's think about wrapping up then, Matt. So, if you could tell everyone where they can find you.
So they can basically, I have a hub. As Alan and Emily would quite happily tell you, you should have a website. Uh, Mine is immattking.com. So I am mattking.com. You can find all of my socials there. You can find all of the videos, all of my blogs, vlogs. You can find links to my Instagram. And more importantly, you can sign up to the newsletter there. So immattking.com.
Nice, I like it. And also, people can contact you at the bottom of your your bottom of your newsletter to work with you, can't they?
They
You're
can.
an ambassador for is it X-Way Skateboards?
X-Way skateboards, yes. I've got two X-Way skateboards. This week I've been riding the original boosted board, which have gone out of business. So I have three electric skateboards, but I am a brand ambassador, so they can also get money off X-Way skateboards if they so wished.
Nice. And so yes, also obviously you do podcasts, you do concrete
Content
content
creation,
creation. There you go, third time's a charm, and all sorts of other stuff as well. So and you're on a podcast now, so and I saw that at the bottom of your email. I thought, oh, Matt's one of my heroes. I should reach out to him, and here we are.
collaborating.
Collaboration. That is key. Okay, so everyone knows where they can find you. I think we've reached a nice point. So I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks very much to Matt for being on. And peace out. Thanks for joining us on Rad-Ventures. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite platform. Always happy to chat, so hit me up in the DMs. And I'll see you on the next Rad-Venture. Is that right, do you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Good. I enjoyed it too. I'll stop the recording now.